This weekend, the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup has its second race of the season, and we're at Silverstone in Northamptonshire for our second 3-hour race of the season. This has been a very frantic week for many of the teams because they had the opening 2 Blancpain GT World Challenge Europe races at Brands Hatch just under a week ago. In some cases, they've had a lot of repair work to do, and now they make their way to Silverstone. Yesterday, there was some testing. Today, however, free practice is about to get underway, and we've had a busy morning with single-seaters and Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars. A bit of rubber has been put down. It is dry, but not exactly warm at the moment. There's a threat of rain. We'll see what pans out in the next hour and a half. David Addison and John Watson trackside at the home of the British Racing Drivers Club, John, and this still a great circuit for the drivers and the cars.
Well, welcome to Buckinghamshire.
As well as Northamptonshire.
As well as Northamptonshire, for those people who are in the divide, because Silverstone is split between 2 wonderful Shire counties. We're in Northamptonshire, I think, but the far end of the circuit down around Stowe, and watching the cars as they come through Copse for the first, is that Copse? No, it's not that, through Woodcote. Just getting a first glimpse of the racetrack. This is Buckinghamshire, I think. We are in Northamptonshire. Luckily, we're not politicians. We're not mentioning the B word either.
Well, we have then the cars making their way out for this free practice session. This, the new section of circuit, put in a couple of years ago, or a few years ago now. Time marches on. You see the Lexus coming out of Aintree onto Wellington Straight. That's the car that Bernard Delhay shares with Fabian Barthez. And now the field sprint down towards the left-hander of Brooklands. Number 97 Aston Martin, which is a regular Endurance Cup entrance. This being the car from the Oman Racing with TF Sports squad, so it means it's the Omani driver Ahmad Al Harfi plus Salah Yoric, the Turkish driver, and the Irishman Charlie Eastwood.
Charlie!
And that's another good combination of drivers. So we don't need to worry overly about times in this, because it all largely is about getting a rhythm, getting the car set up. You might be on old tyres, but it is going to be interesting to see who is doing what.
I mean, everybody has been here since Thursday. They've been pounding around Thursday. It was damp when they started, wet actually when they started, then pounding around Friday. So they probably pounded out. There's the car. Look at it. Don't forget it. That lizard green Porsche GT3. It's an R, isn't it?
It is, yes.
The winner of the opening round in Monza. What an amazing race. What an amazing, I mean, race of surprises.
Yeah. And it kept on surprising, didn't it, with the spate of deflated tyres late race that affected a few teams, and this car came good. We were expecting perhaps the Rover Porsches to come good, but it was this single entry from Dynamic Motorsport, mirroring really what Auto Orlando Sport did all those years ago in the very first endurance series, as it then was Blancpain race at Monza. So 54 will go out in a little while. This is the car that Zaid Ashkanani, Klaus Bachler and Andrea Rizzoli share. They'll work through this, get the drivers cycled through, and then perhaps towards the end of the session think about a time. But it's great to have Porsche back, and it was only the 3rd win in an endurance race for Porsche after you sort of get tricked into thinking, because it's such a sports car brand, that it must have won more races than that. But the first one at Monza, a year later at the Nürburgring, and then Monza a few weeks ago, and that's it.
Well, who's going to win here this weekend? I mean, frankly, I haven't got a clue. And if the form follows the form in Monza, which probably it won't, because Monza was a race that was dictated fundamentally by the weather, as we look at one of the Row Racing Porsches, the 98. We're not going to have that kind of, I think, mixed and match weather that we had a month or so ago at the Monza Autodromo. So the consequence of running wet weather tyres on a track that really was too dry for them, but too wet at the same time for slicks. So hopefully we'll see a race which will be about out-and-out pace, good strategy, good driving, 3 drivers per car, with the exception of 1 or 2. And if it follows the form that we've had in the previous endurance rounds, these are events which are not really endurance, they're just a 3-hour sprint.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's going to be fascinating to see what is the strongest brand around here. There is one of those 2 Rover Racing Porsches I was mentioning a moment ago. The team splitting its effort between BMW in the VLN and Porsche in Blancpain endurance races this year. Sven Muller is at the wheel of this car, and that's got to be, certainly in terms of the quality of brand, team and driver lineup, a potential winner.
Well, it looked like it was going to be a winner again, going back to Monza. In fairness, a number of the brands, a number of teams looked like they could be a winner. But certainly this operation coming from BMW's last season now into the Porsche, teams like Row Racing don't just move across to another brand because it's a pretty car. It's very sound, technical, engineering, competition, whatever reasons. So again, a car and a team may not necessarily show an out-and-out single lap pace, but it's about a 3-hour, I call it a sprint, it's a 3-hour endurance event.
So the cars, for the moment, make their way here out of Aintree and down Wellington Straight. 98 Sven Muller, currently third, 2 minutes 0.764. Jordan Pepper has just gone fastest though in the 107 Bentley, 2 minutes 0.009, with 2 absolute bests in sectors. Again, keep making the point, it's not all about the lap time, but it is fascinating to see who is doing what. And here, Muller has got himself caught up a little bit behind this re-liveried Gignon Lamborghini, the Felegioni, Gosselin and Kuppen's car.
It sort of rather looks as would be more at home on Bond Street or Sloane Street in London, with that gold wrap on the car. Certainly a very striking livery as we look at the 88 Mercedes coming into Pops Corner. So over the 2 days of running, because partly the weather had a bearing, partly because people were not going to show maybe their hand, the quickest laps that we were seeing were roughly where we are now, and it was Charlie Eastwood initially. Now Jordan Pepper has gone quickest on the 2:00.009, and it's 1/10 of a second quicker than Charlie Eastwood. So I would expect lap times to drop away. If you look at the 107, that's currently the quickest car. Jordan Pepper behind the wheel as it sort of thunders its way around Abbey, then cutting back. This is the revised part of the farm curve into Village. This sort of tricky right-hander. You never know whether to stay tight on the exit or let it run very wide. Then into the loop. Then from the loop through Aintree, which is flat out, a great corner, and gives you then the lead onto Wellington Straight, one of the quicker parts of the racetrack, and then into the big braking zone as you come down, and it's again a very late apex into Brooklands Corner. Delicious. Well, took the very words out of my mouth. Number 9, Gignon BMW has stopped.
It's Philippe Steveny, and that is where? Coming out of Chapel Curve, maybe? Yeah, yellows are waiting back in Sunday.
It's just on the exit of Beckett Street. Oh no, he's gone off in the middle.
Oh gosh, yes.
Is that contact or not? Or the car certainly got a
red flag as well.
Yeah, so the car's going to be removed. There's a cone by that left front wheel. I don't know whether that's incidental or whether it has been placed there, but the car in a sort of precarious position, because if another car were to go off in the middle of that sequence of corners up at Abbey, it could spear off to the right, as we've seen the BMW trying to move the car. Of course, it's probably, is it in gear or not? No, they're not. They're able to get the car pushed back. It should be able to start under its own steam, and then once it's running, let's have a look and see. Yeah, just rotation coming through. Oh, two cars, contact. That's one of the Porsche. Is that the 98?
No, that's the Ben Goethe car, isn't it? The Gulf car one that's shared with Stuart Hall. I'm trying to see who's at the wheel of that. Give me a moment.
The young Goethe was in sort of all kinds of trouble at Monza. Remember coming out of the pit lane, and he disengaged traction control and floored it, and it performed an unusual feat of turning sharp left and going straight across the racetrack and into the barrier on the outside of the pit straight.
It was Goethe at the wheel of that car just now, you've seen spinning. So red flag, everyone is brought back to the pit lane, and Philippe Steveny sets off.
The father of young Benjamin Goethe is going to be part of a very, very special occasion later this year, because he owns something like 30 or more Gulf liveried cars, race cars, over many, many years. So it was an important event coming up, albeit what we're seeing here today is the young man learning his trade.
So there you can see the Gignon team down in the pit lane, and we were talking about the Monza winning Porsche earlier. Klaus Bachler is with Dakota.
Yes, David, I'm here with Klaus Bachler in his winning Porsche. Klaus, this is a different kind of race than Monza. You showed great pace in Monza. Do you think you're going to have the same pace here?
I mean, to be honest, in Monza we had just a great race. No mistakes, the car was very good. And in the end, we hope the same here, but in the end, the most important thing is that we do a good job. So we focus on ourselves, we try to be without mistakes, and the car was feeling quite good the last 2 days already. Let's see how it is today. In terms of conditions, it's not so easy, to be honest, because we had always some little drizzling, so it was raining, drying up. It's not easy here to find the right balance. But yesterday the car was feeling well, and so we look forward.
Now, tyre degradation looks quite important here for this 3-hour race. Your car seemed okay on it in Monza, but that Mercedes looks also quite strong.
Yeah, I mean, let's see how it is here. I see it the same. Yesterday the Mercedes was very strong in my opinion. They could do consistent lap times. Our car looks good on this, on tire degradation, but let's see. I mean, yesterday we had another problem. We had a problem with the pickup. We struggled to get easy pickup. We hope to get this away, and then it should be fine.
Looking forward to getting in the car?
Yes.
Of course. Good luck.
So the Porsche, single car, of course, from the Dynamic Motorsport team. And as you look at Mercedes and see also how crowded the pit lane is, just another idle thought as we have a red flag. In all the year that Blancpain has been coming to Silverstone, we've not yet had an Audi take an outright win here. It's come close as a brand. 2 wins for BMW, 2 for Aston Martin, Bentley, McLaren, Mercedes, or to be polite, Mercedes AMG, and Lamborghini, all victors. But bizarrely, given the track record of the brand, never an Audi win at Silverstone.
And they don't have pole position in the pit lane either. They've lost that position to Black Falcon. But just going back to what Klaus Bachler was saying, the nature of Monza, with its 3 principal chicanes, one of which is a quick chicane, but first chicane, second chicane, are very much about getting good drive, good traction off those chicanes, which works to the favor of the layout of the Porsche. But here at Silverstone, it's the ultimate, if you want to call it, high-speed permanent racetrack, with the sequence of corners starting with Copse, because we're using the not the Grand Prix circuit, the international circuit. So Copse is your first corner, then up through the whole Beckett's complex, down through Stowe, then coming back through Abbey. It's a high-speed circuit, and I think that layout might well favour slightly more towards the mid-front engine cars, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Bentley, principally in terms of overall pace, and maybe tyre use degradation, where I hope that's not the case. But looking at going back to your form here, 2 BMW wins, 2 Aston wins, Bentley, McLaren, Mercedes, obviously mid-front engine, Lamborghini. So the propensity of wins go slightly more towards the mid-front engine cars. Took a long time to get there, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Those BMW wins, you're going back to the days of the Z4, aren't you? Because the M6 has not really sparkled, although it did in these
Spa 24 hours
last year. But that's a very different sort of race, as we know. We're looking forward to that hugely come the end of July. 107 then, Jordan Pepper. This is the car that's fastest thus far in the session, the South African, sharing with Jules Gounon and Stephen Kane. And I've just mentioned Bentley has won here, but it was with the earlier generation car. And is that a bit of concern around the right front? What do you think?
Well, they're looking at something. I don't know whether it's part of the underbody, the aerodynamics, or whether that's more of a... I can't quite tell whether they're working on the right front brake. I mean, these cars obviously run ABS. There are sensors on all parts of the suspension, all parts of the brake system. So I would say that was an issue with braking, and maybe the driver, Jordan Pepper, wasn't particularly happy with the feel, the response he was getting from the brake. Can't think what else it might be, other than if there's a suspension adjustment that needs the front wheel or wheels to be removed to get at, maybe a damper adjustment. But I would assume, being a rally-based racing team, they would look for areas other than having to take a wheel off to make a suspension adjustment.
Well, the session is live again, as you see everyone heading back down the pit lane. Car number 23 has been reported to the stewards for speeding in the pit lane, and 23 is being driven by Bernard Delhay at the moment.
That's a good start to your weekend, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You've only been here for 2 days. 50, is that 50 or 63? 63. That's the Christian Engelhardt, a car that is always going to be at the sharp end of any field. So we've got Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt and Rolf in the car. It's come up behind one of the rival teams. I was going to say sister teams, more probably a rival team. The Orange One FFF racing team, who really made a big impact in their first 2 events.
Absolutely right. And of course, what we have back this weekend for the FFF squad is Dynamite Dennis Lind, who was so impressive.
Mega.
Only doing the endurance races, not sprint, but he was an absolute gun, wasn't he?
He was a star when the track at Monza was at its, well, not its worst, but it was pretty bad. I don't know what he did or what Lamborghini or what his team did, but that car would shoot out of the chicanes. It had traction beyond anybody else around him. Doesn't matter the brand. Dennis Lind did a stellar stint in his car.
Absolutely right. Great to have him back in Europe. As you look at Christian Engelhardt, whose future was a little unsure at the end of last season, but again, he's been delivering the goods in endurance and in sprint as he comes now up through the right and then left, the village, and then into the loop, and then in turn brings you towards Aintree, and then onto Wellington Straight.
Yeah, I do like Aintree. I think it's one of those corners that, I mean, it's easy flat, but what you want to do is make the corner as much a straight line as you possibly can. So in other words, you're not putting too much lock on, you're letting the car just use the maximum amount of track width on the inside of the curb, in other words, and then let it drift all the way out. Being careful not to abuse track limits. Purple in that middle sector, so this should see Engelhardt go at this point. What we've got just now 13 minutes to go, ought to go quick as maybe a 1:59 something if Engelhardt can hold it all together.
Should go below the 2 minutes, and he does a no, not quite, 2 minutes 0.719, so he actually lost out.
Surprising.
At the end of the lap, yeah.
Surprising. I mean, he personal best first sector, fastest overall second sector. Maybe this is just a reflection of the comments that were being made this morning, in that drivers feel that the track has yet to fully come to them. Now, the Grand Prix loop isn't used, other than there was a 24-hour race for Citroën C1 or C2.
Yes.
About 2 weekends ago.
100 of them. Can you believe it?
One of my mates makes multiple, his company, Grand Prix Models, makes lots of models for me of cars I've raced. And he said, I didn't realise how dark it is in the middle of Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire around the Grand Prix circuit. There's nothing, there's no lights and there's no moonlight. It was as dark as you know where.
Well, we don't have 100, but we still have a very, very impressive grid and well over 40 cars, some of which have yet to do a time. Alexander West there in the AM Cup, Garage 59, Aston Martin. Still have to practice saying it. They get a third driver this weekend because filming commitments mean that Chris Harris can be back with Chris Goodwin and Alexander, who of course is part of the investment in the team, Alexander West and Chris Goodwin and Andrew Kokodi. So here comes Alexander West through Club Corner, and he will go past the wing, and he's having the lights flashed by the AMG Mercedes behind, which is in a big hurry. Matt Parry has just gone up to third for our Motorsport in the Aston Martin. So it's Bentley, Aston at the moment. Very good and British at the top of the times.
So Alexander West getting a hurry up from the Mercedes. I mean, again, everybody's been here, done a lot of running over 2 days. It's amazing how much frustration you sense. And that's the 87. ASP, so Jimmy Pla, Mauro Ricci and Jean-Luc. I don't think that's Jean-Luc Bouveling flashing the lights. They're probably more like Jimmy Pla.
I think you're probably right about that. Down it comes then. Turns through the left of Brooklands in front of the BRDC Clubhouse. Alexander West, as I say, one of the AM Cup drivers. Pro-Am is where you find the 87 Mercedes, which was in the wars at Monza, remember, with the incident that Pla had with Bremont Voss.
Yeah, and also the 111 Mercedes isn't here either. I gather the car that was also
that's right, yeah,
heavily involved in incidents down to the first chicane, amongst other parts of the circuit.
And if you see 52 Ferrari, which got involved with it, that you'll notice is there through the shot, a different livery, because it was damaged again at Brands Hatch last week. So it's a different Ferrari. It's not the black and white, it's the red and white, rather more familiar Ferrari colours. Right, an hour and 10 minutes of free practice to go. There is 54 Porsche, Monza winner, it's on track, and Andrea Rizzoli is given first dibs behind the wheel.
I mean, it looks so showroom. I mean, because there's very little commercial support in and around the car. You look at it and think, well, has that just been driven out of your nearest Porsche dealer who happens to be down I'm actually on site?
Yes.
But in fact, it's not. It's a full race car. As we ride on board, Andrea Rizzoli.
So this is the loop that then opens up into Aintree, and there you've got the Lamborghini ahead of him. So that should cut through the air quite nicely, given the almost wedge shape of the Lamborghini ahead. Let's see now.
So 220-ish, 230, possibly 32, 240, 140 miles an hour, approximately, actually nearer to 150. Yeah, there we go. The hand comes up, the international signal to say thank you very much. Oh, 2 fingers. And the problem is the spy in the cab gets you every time.
Exactly.
Maybe there were some flies in the cockpit he was trying to distract, I don't know.
Well, Rizzoli, having completely had to abort the lap, goes again without the traffic ahead, but blimey, it's only free practice, and yet the animation in the car there for all to see. Heavens.
Yeah, this sort of thing it's not unfamiliar with racing drivers. Every time they're in a car, there's always an element of frustration if they get another car ahead, which probably is every bit as quick in a straight line, but not as quick in a lap. And and that's not what you want to have happen going into Beckett's. That was nearly a big moment for Rizzoli.
Is this the red mist? I mean, he's got himself all wound up because of the traffic, and now on the next lap, he's overdriving and he's made a mistake, so that's 2 laps wasted now.
I think that's a reflection of the amount of grip the racetrack is delivering to the teams, because the circuit has not been used, to my knowledge, for an international, an event as big as this. So the tarmac and the racetrack is really having to get back to a level that it would normally be once you've had some major events on it. So I think it's a reflection of a number of things, but I think it's also partly just the racetrack is yet to come to the teams, and probably that's a reflection on the quickest lap still with Jordan Pepper, only 2 minutes 0.0009, where I would have thought by now you'd have been expecting people to be down in the 159s, maybe a high 158.
Well, there in the pit lane is the ACA ASP team cycling through its fleet of Mercedes. 48, incidentally, is the magic number. That's how many cars we have going to this second round. And Ben Goethe has spun his Porsche again, incidentally, coming out of Brooklands. So he's got going again, but has had a rotation. Stefano Gattuso is being summoned to the stewards at the end of the session. That's the Ombra Lamborghini, Gattuso, Dupont and Dean Stover. I wonder whether it was Gattuso who is felt to have been getting in the way of Rizzoli. This is Goethe, and around he goes.
I mean, 16 years old.
Missed the driver's briefing yesterday because he was doing school exams.
Well, so did
Romain Dumas.
Not Timo Bernard, but
Romain Dumas missed the driver's briefing because he was busy at the Nordschleife, but his school exams are a distant memory. Yes.
So, this is a high-grade category of GT3 racing, and lack of experience in a very competitive championship.
And Andrea Rizzoli is being summoned to the stewards after the session as well, so I suspect that the stewards have had a good look at that onboard footage and weren't overly impressed about what Rizzoli was doing.
Yeah, he's also getting pinged for track limit abuse at turn 7. Let's look and see what's going on the ASP 87 driver change. So they're just literally getting their drivers through, getting all 3 drivers essentially through in this 1 hour and 6 minutes remaining. As we look down, or up Hanger Straight is the Honda. And Jensen Team Rocket RJN.
Andrea Bertolini, I was talking about this car earlier, 52 Ferrari, but different colour scheme, different car, because it's one out of the fleet while they repair the black and white one from last weekend. And Andrea Bertolini was the innocent victim in all sorts of current barrage coming out of Hawthorns, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and he got absolutely drilled. So hopefully they'll have better fortune, because they were also drilled good and proper at Monza. Nick Thomas was on that.
One might say change your colour, change your luck.
Maybe.
Like a great comment in one of my favourite movies. Change your hair, change your luck. Change your hair. Well, change your colour, change your luck. I don't know. Maybe 52 in red will have a better weekend.
But redheads have more fun, don't they, or something? Bertolini then in traffic. He's got now Jordan Pepper up behind him. Bertolini is second fastest, so he's, as you would expect, because he's a class act. Yes, the car runs in Pro-Am, but he is very much the pro.
Oh, indeed. I mean, very, very experienced indeed. Again, struggling a little bit behind the Aston Martin coming through Aintree down onto Wellington Straight. And the momentum will be lost. Ferraris traditionally have always been very strong straight line cars, but these Aston Martins with their twin turbo 4-litre V8 motors, AMG drive motors, are very much the match for anything else out there. Yeah. Was it Alexander West, whoever still in that Aston Martin, pulls over as the Ferrari makes it down into the pit lane.
And it comes then, and we are still with just over an hour of the session to go, looking at Jordan Pepper out of the window as you look at number 4 Mercedes. Now this is a car that could have a good result this weekend. They won a sprint race a week ago, Maro Engel and Lukas Stoltz, and this week you add into the mix Jelmer Berman.
I mean, there's always going to be about half a dozen cars that we would look at prior to the weekend beginning that you have to say, yes, that's a possible winner, and that's one of those possible winners, the number 4. I mean, Maro Engel does a stunning job. Lukas Stoltz at Brands Hatch last week just, I mean, so, I mean, if you looked at it, he doesn't even look like a student. He just looks so normal. Did a great job.
And then it's another understated car. It's actually gained, I think, some Padgett backing for this weekend as you look at 62 in the pit lane, which is for SRO Motorsport, the Aston Martin and Mathieu Vazivière, Matt Parry and Maxime Martin.
Another possible winner.
Oh, well, absolutely. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on, doesn't it? Matt Parry has brought it in. Aston Martin, of course, winners here last year. So Pepper, Bertolini, Jolic, Miguel Molina, and then Matt Parry 5th fastest currently is the order.
Look at the complexity inside the driver cockpit. I mean, where the passenger seat might be, myriad of all this ballast. You can see the ballast, that lump of metal where the seat would be, and then there's other parts of the electronics, God knows whatever else they've got in the cockpit of the SRO Motorsports Aston Martin.
So car having some air fed into it for the moment. Door will be closed, ready for the car to go back out. So you look down the hanger straight, and the field pours through. We haven't really seen many of the Audis yet. One goes through shot. Mercedes very, very busy with this Black Falcon and Acker battle, and there is the reason to focus on the Acker car, which has gone rally crossing. Well, that is Felipe Fraga.
Yeah, well, Felipe Fraga is one of my sort of unsung heroes. Brazilian, comes from stock car racing. Very, very committed race driver, but got it wrong again. More than likely getting caught out by the combination of tire temperature, track conditions. He's learned, he's on his way again, so he's coming down into Copse Corner.
519 is the Orange One FFF Racing Team Phil Keane, Giovanni Venturini, Font Pereira entry, which has got Font Pereira at the wheel of the car at the moment. So you take those Lamborghini numbers of 19 and 55 and 63, but you put the lucky Chinese 5 in front. That's how you get to the numbers that this team managed as well as driven for by Andrea Caldarelli has gone for, and the car being brought away from the fast lane now.
Yeah, that's the pro car, or one of 2 pro cars. There's a silver car amongst the Orange One FFF Racing Team, but it's the other cars, the 563 with Andrea Caldarelli, Dennis Lind and Marco Mappelli is most likely to be the quickest out of all 3. And I mean, Dennis Lind, who we were eulogizing at Monza, well, are we going to get to do the same again? So the 555 is the Silver Cup car with Diego Mancheca, Taylor Proto and with Michele Barretta, and he's off track up. That's 29. 29, that's coming out of Brooklands. It's just had a big lose. That's the Constantini Thomas Lenz car. And it's Christoph Lenz, Lamborghini Super Trofeo race, that had a big old spin, but he's got going again. And the track is catching a lot of people out. I mean, it's... There you go. Here we are, out of Brooklands, back end goes, and in fact, the pendulum effect just continues to take the car out. Once the tyre has lost that fundamental track grip, whether it's a tyre temperature issue or whether it's just the track temperature is still low, combination or whatever, we're seeing a number of issues, and that's not going to help very much. Putting a load of Silverstone's earth onto the circuit, but he's got to get the car mobile, otherwise that would have been another, certainly a yellow flag, if not a red flag, down at the exit of Brooklands. True enough. Just an hour remaining. Where's the first half hour gone? And we're still, no one's broken the 2-minute lap time. No, it's surprising in a sense. Everyone sort of went out with a flourish and did a time, and now they seem to be working through that programme of whatever they need to do. The Barwell Lamborghini is 77. That's the AM Cup winning car. Adrian Amstutz at the wheel of it, one at Monza. Mark Lemmer with his 2 cars, one in the Silver Cup, one in the AM Cup. The Silver Cup for the young guns. James Paul, Sandy Mitchell, 2 of the drivers, along with Jordan Witt. And there is 555. That was the car that was upside down a week ago, wasn't it? And then had its engine problems in the first race. It was a pretty miserable weekend, actually, for FFF Racing Team. With a bad result for one car in the first race and a bad result for the other one in qualifying and race 1 and not making it to race 2. It was pretty hard work. It was a tough weekend, and I mean, Brands is a demanding racetrack. when you get such a competitive field, everybody's right at the very edge of what their car, their own ability potential is. So it punishes really severely any errors. And going in the first of the 2 races at Brands Hatch with 4 wide going up into Paddock Bend, no wonder there was contact between the Caldarelli car and the Stein-Schornhorst Audi.
Well, 555 trying to wriggle through the traffic at the moment. It's Michele Beretta who does go through on the inside, gets himself ahead of the Rinaldi Ferrari of Christian Hook.
Now here's a car that we ordinarily, automatically assume is going to be the quickest. Maybe not on this lap, but it will certainly at some point get down to a lap time which will the roar through Abbey. I don't know whether he's flat out or not. I mean, it's a difficult, it's one of those corners, it's so downforce dependent. And if you've got grip from the tyre, good mechanical grip with the level of downforce these GT3 cars generate, it's probably just about, but only on a set of tyres that's fresh. If the tyres have done a long run, it'll be a lot more difficult.
The sectors aren't suggesting he's flat out. Raffaele Marciello perhaps building up for a time here, but he's always a joy to watch, isn't he?
A bit under the weather, I thought, last weekend. He didn't seem to have that flair that we so accustomed to seeing from Marcello, but maybe again, you know, we can't expect the guy to entertain as well as deliver. But now coming out of the run through Luffield into Woodcut, absolutely flat out, no problem through that. Comes across start-finish line. Let's see where this puts the 88 Mercedes. Have to look way down.
And he's 12th fastest.
Yeah.
Chris Froggatt is being given a track limits warning flag in the Pro-Am 93 Tempesta Racing Ferrari. Marciello presses on. We're still not yet seeing anybody drop below that 2-minute mark. Pepper, Bertolini, Jolic, Molina, Parry, and then Raymond Vos showed us 6th, but I would imagine that's a Tom Onslow Cole time. Engel is 7th, Prostani is 8th, James Pull is 9th, Matt Campbell is 10th.
I mean, Marcello is pushing hard. You see coming through the exit through Chapel onto the straight. Couldn't use a little bit. There's no more racetrack left for him to use. Then down to Stowe. The body language of the car doesn't look like it's being really nailed. Maybe Raffaele Marcello was just building up, letting the car just getting a feel. Now coming through this 2-park corner at
But again, this is all about getting the car set up, isn't it? The times really will come later on today, or most important of all, first thing in the morning when we do qualifying.
Look how wide he was on that. I mean, he overran the exit of the corner. So coming through Club's a 2-part corner these days, despite being slow in and getting on the throttle on the exit. That's just about what you'd expect from the Parker Bentley. But there's some here coming into Abbey. You see the Porsche behind just weaving around to try and get some tire temperature.
That car, 2 accidents at Monza, 1 in qualifying, 1 in the first 8 laps of the race, 2 rebuilds, total cost around about 70,000 quid, went to Walton Park a week later, an accident there. Poor old Stuart Parker and his team have been up against it, so fingers crossed they can have a trouble-free run here.
Well, the 2 shots at Monza, one was big one on the exit of the Ascari, and then another one, not sure was done the second chicane, I'm not sure. Certainly the left front of that car did get a lot of attention from either other cars or from the racetrack, and there we see one of the Mercedes. And why is that done at the exit? Yeah, about Brooklands.
That's the Raymond Vos car, isn't it? 74, remember the one that was involved? Yes, it is, with Jim Clark at Monza. So Vos has rotated, but he will get going again. The Dutch amateur rumbles back onto the track, and the yellows can be withdrawn.
Again, it's one of the sort of middle speed corners, high speed approach, middle speed corner. It's all about the exit, getting the car straight to try and get the shortest distance down into the beginning of Luffield, which is a more technical corner because there's a myriad of different options and lines that you can take in Luffield. So maybe just a little bit too throttle happy. Still nobody has broken the 122nd lap barrier.
No. Here's Clement Schmidt, who had a good run at Brands Hatch a week ago in the World Challenge Europe opening rounds, goes through Abbey now. To make the point, we are using the so-called heritage pit, so with the, what you might call familiar, conventional, normal pit straight, rather than the F1 pits in front of the wing. Schmidt is only 35th at the moment, and you've got to go quite a long way down to find the best Audi. Simon Gachet, 12 fastest for Santalot, number 25.
I mean, we've just seen an improvement from the 63 Lamborghini Mirko Bortolotti. He's just suddenly leapt up into the top 10 to 8th quickest on a 2:00.005. So he is 0.532 slower than Jordan Pepper, who set that lap on his second lap. I mean, yeah, that may have been when the tyre, would have been when the tyre, whatever, was at its freshest, as 97 goes wide coming out of Luffield.
That's Salah Jolic, the Turkish driver. Dr. Jolic. He's back on the road again, but thankfully no harm done. There's lots of nice run-off tarmac there to play with.
Yes, that was a car, well, the time was established by Charlie Eastwood very early in the session.
There you go. What did he do here, John?
He just ran out of road. And of course, once you end up going through the gravel, this is not Wimbledon style lawn. It's grass, and it's slightly uneven, not for any particular reason. That's just the nature of, you know, that wasn't Buckinghamshire, it'd be smooth as a pancake, I bet you.
Over in Northamptonshire, different kettle of fish. So Jolic back on track, and as we say, that car third with the Eastwood time from early on. We've nudged past the hour mark, as you see there, the recovering TF Sport Run Aston Martin, and he's off again. Now, is that because he's got very dirty tyres, or has he got a bigger problem than that? But Jolic, within the space of a lap, has had 2 offs.
Can't explain that one. I don't really know how to explain the first one. But other than, quite simply, the comment that drivers have made from the 2 days of running is that they don't feel that the racetrack is giving them what they want out of it.
62 back out, Matt Parry staying behind the wheel. We were saying at Brands Hatch, we'll say it again because we like the look of it. These are Motorsport Aston Martins, look mega.
Oh, that looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it is really, really pure racing car. If you wanted to buy a car on looks alone, in that sort of battleship grey almost, you probably get your Aston Martin a wrap in that colour if you wanted it, but it just looks so purposeful.
So, driver change now. Matt Parry finishing his stint. They do the practice pit stop, as it were, do the driver change, because it's all good experience, and pretend this is in the race, just to make sure that the guys know exactly where the car needs to be on the marks, how they will go about the pit stop procedure. Pit stop, I know we're looking ahead for tomorrow, but it's 65 seconds here, pit in to pit out. Nice long pit lane, of course, at Silverstone. And it's a fast in and a fast out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and particularly if you're, as always, if you're down towards the pit lane exit, it always gives you the sense that when you leave your pit, you're on it straight away. I don't know whether actually anybody's ever come up with a thesis as to why that is the feeling. I don't know if it ever works out in reality, but it always seems if you're near the pit lane exit, you do gain a marginal advantage.
There is the 108 Bentley, which is Andy Soucek at the wheel of the car, 16th fastest. And Andy, another great character, blasts over the line, sharing the car with Maxime Soulet and Alex Buncombe, which is great to see. Alex this weekend will have his 41st Blancpain Endurance race start, equaling Stefan Ortelli's record.
Outstanding, outstanding. And the great Alex Buncombe, who has driven himself into the seat in this car from his efforts in Monza. I mean, we're not seeing, David, lap times we anticipated, but what we are seeing, the top 21 cars are covered by 0.892 of a second. So it may not be uber quick or ultra quick, but it's ultra close.
Absolutely. Yeah, what is it? Just the first 21 covered by under a second.
Yeah, Matt Parry talking to Maxime Martin, and
I just got rid of the brake.
Yeah, you gather he's not overly happy with. It's not, I don't think it's the fault of the car. And that's a little bit wide in the exit.
That's Soucek, isn't it?
Yeah, you might get a suit check for that too. Track limits.
Matt Parry, just to go back to his lack of joy, he's 0.385 of a second off the top time. He's 5th fastest, but he's not happy. We've got a car and a driver being reported to the stewards for pit lane speeding. It's Jens Liebhauser in the AM Cup Ferrari that is run by the HB Racing Squad. Slightly quirky though, isn't it, that Bentley 107 is fastest and 108 is only 16th. I know there's not much to choose between, there's 7 tenths, but Soucek for the moment not being able to unlock that final bit of pace.
No, certainly he's using lots and lots of bits other than the black bit of the racetrack. I mean, you're allowed to run 2 wheels clearly, running 4 wheels as wide as that's getting close to what might get a built, but is that a cut on a tyre, or is that where a tyre might have been cut down by something? Is there a... Interesting. Certainly there's an issue on that shoulder of the Straka Racing Mercedes, one of their tyres.
The Straka Mercedes at the moment is 34th, and in the pit lane, Jack Hawksworth brought it in, but maybe that's where the concern comes. At 108 through again, Andy Soucek. That last lap was a 2 minutes 1.36 tenths down.
Look how wide, I mean, coming out of Cops.
Important race this for Bentley, of course. Lots of media attention, with it being a British round for the British brand. Lots of guests here as well, so they need a good result.
100 years history. They had a major event here, a few weeks ago. And anybody who owned a Bentley, particularly from the late 20s, of the history of racing at Le Mans, in particular the 4.5 litres, they were out in force. I mean, it looked perishingly cold, but brave boys and girls.
Indeed, indeed. So Jordan Pepper for Bentley is the fastest. You're looking at 108, Andy Soucek down in the first sector, but need we be worried? Because if they're working on setup and balance of the car and very wide again at club goes Soucek, but expect the times to come towards the end of pre-qualifying, maybe at the end of today, and in that three-part qualifying session that we have tomorrow morning. That's when the grid is set. This is of interest and importance to the teams, but it's not going to affect the grid.
No, I mean, it's fundamentally about doing a bit of additional homework, having had 2 days to add to your homework list. So what we're going to see here is, in my view, more about continuity, getting all your drivers cycled through in conditions which are probably more consistent, albeit it's not very hot out there. The track temperature isn't maybe as high as some drivers would like it. It's Bortolini behind the wheel still in the 63. Oh, it's Rolf van Eycken. So that car still 8 quickest from the time that was established by Mirko Bortolotti.
So we're approaching halfway as you see the second of the SRO Motorsport Astons in the pit lane. 76 is the Marvin Kirchhofer, Jake Dennis, Nicky Team car. Winners last year. And Nicky Team, when he's unleashed in that, he's always going to be one to watch.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, one of those race drivers who brings joie de vivre. Is that maybe the right description? Exciting to watch and a great driver in his own right.
Pit lane getting busier. 72 Ferrari of Davide Rigon is up to 4th quickest, ahead of 62 now Mathieu Vazivière at the wheel of it. Raymond Boss, courtesy of Tom Onslow Cole, classified 6th. Mario Engel is 7th. Rolf van Eycken, thanks to Bortolotti, is 8th. 9th is Nicolas Pollard in the 27 Lazarus Racing Lamborghini that he shares with Fabio Crestani and Chris Richard. And then James Poole for Barwell, the Silver Cup driver, is 10th. Where is this car then? The Monza winning Porsche. It's only 26th at the moment. Zaid Ashkanani.
Looked good coming through the exit of Beckett's onto Hangar Straight. Whether it looks good and is quick, separate issue. But where are the other, the 99 Porsche, Matt Campbell, he is 11th. The 98 is in Romain Dumas, who's just come back from a trip to Nürburgring, and maybe we'll get a little bit more detail whether electric has done a better job than traditional gasoline. In other words, they were trying to set a new electric car record. So a long run into this corner at the end of the Grand Prix circuit pits at Abbey. On board, let's have a look and see what's happening with the Porsche up alongside, coming through. This is through Woodcote. Wow, gets the nose chopped off that fairly and squarely. That was the Parker Bentley, I think, that just literally swapped. There we are. You can see the Bentley now still ahead of the 54 Porsche. And I don't think you can see from the hand coming off the wheel, sort of, well, did you not know I was there? Would you not give me some room? I've called you. And it's now virtually the lap complete, and still Porsche unable to find a way past the Parker Bentley, which now a similar car to the M Sport, the factory cars, and is at Silverstone. Are very, very effective now. Again, gets up the inside and is able to, well, what happened? Control the exit of Woodcote.
Yeah, Porsche did go through on track as we cut away. Just looking to see, yeah, Rob Smith's at the wheel of the Bentley. Now, number 72, 4th quickest. This is the second best Ferrari, the SMP Racing AF Corsa car. Davide Rigon at the wheel, that he shares with Mikhail Alyoshin and with Miguel Molina. So it's a car that I have to confess, for my money, is overdue a win. It's been in the post, but it's not yet delivered.
You can say that about that car, many events.
Yeah. And it's got everything going for it. Good driver lineup, good car, good team, but it seems to just trip itself up, or circumstance gets in the way, or whatever it might be, but it's not had the win it needs, and it deserves it.
Well, we see these cars certainly in the AM category, and maybe to a lesser degree in the Pro-Am category, very, very strong. But as you point out, David, it's winning the race overall rather than just winning your group. So it's always of value to any race series when a Ferrari or a number of Ferraris are in competition. And at some point, one of them gets on the winner's podium.
So right now, David Rigon is 4th quickest, but he's not improving in the sectors. In fact, finding anybody that's improved in a sector is very rare, other than Dries Vanthoor, who then pitted at the end of the lap, so it was all rather superfluous anyway. And Vanthoor, who we've not mentioned yet in the session, is but 30th out of the 48.
Well, that's not a reflection of that young man's ability, that is for sure. So, I mean, everybody who's gone out, at some point they had a tyre that was fresher at the start, as was the case with the number 107 Bentley and the 52 Ferrari. So I doubt there's very much change of rubber been taking place in this session amongst many of the teams, other than if you maybe had a damaged tyre. So the lap times were fundamentally more a reflection of track conditions, of the ambient track temperature, but principally of everybody being very, very cautious on their tyre allocations and the use of it.
Team manager of 93, Chris Froggatt's Ferrari, being summoned to see the race director.
I mean, that's outside some of the shops in London would be just absolutely, I mean, it looks amazing. But that is what I would probably call a gold wrap rather than a paint job. So quick way to change the car's appearance is professional companies now do these wraps. So if you fancy a touch of gold, depending on whether, I mean, it does work on the Lamborghini, I must say. That the lines of the car tend to fit very well with that particular colour of wrap.
So we've got 42 minutes of this session to go, and he says, tempting fate to an extent. The errors seem to have gone now. People are getting into a rather happier place, and they're getting more used to the circuit and its conditions and what the grip level might be. So those spins that we had earlier are not quite so prevalent now, but equally, nor are these improved times. Now, of course, the teams will say, well, it doesn't matter because we're bedding in discs, or we're looking at setup, or we're scrubbing in tyres. Times will come later on, but at the moment, it's a very odd order that we have.
Well, it's not giving us in the commentary booth any sort of real steer as to what will be the true form. And we've got a session later in the afternoon when that will probably become more obvious.
Yeah, pre-qualifying is at the very end of the day, isn't it? And that's going to give us a better idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're on there at 20 to 4, or it starts at 20 to 4, finishes at 5:15. And that's really effectively midway through Sunday's race to sort of the last third of the race. But the trouble is, qualifying is Sunday morning, 20 to 10, been identical time that virtually that this session started. And again, track conditions are going to be different. They're going to be a lot cooler. Ambient's going to be a lot cooler. So maybe somebody might have tried something with a fresher set of tyres. That's why we saw all of a sudden the 107 Bentley, as opposed to its sister car, jump up to the top of the timing and scoring. As we watch the Jensen Rocket Honda, and again a car that I thought looked very impressive on its debut at Monza. Single car entry, Jensen Team Rocket RJN.
And the Ram Racing Mercedes in the pit lane that we saw Renault Moss having a spin in earlier. Fuel goes in. This gives you an idea of what the teams have to go through at least twice in the course of the race. It'll be on the hour pretty much where the cars make the mandatory pit stops. But when you get to Spa, they are doing this time and time and time again, plus all the other pit stops that you can never vouchsafe for.
And apparently something like 70 entries.
Is that what we're up to already?
I understand.
Wow. It's going to be an amazing race this year.
Was mentioned at Brands Hatch last weekend. There's something approximately 70 entries. I mean, when the cars take the start of the race, some of them are still going to be out of the chicane. I mean, it's half a mile away. maybe more.
Your grid walk at the start, I mean, that's always elbows out because it is such a packed grid.
Well, the grid walk at the start of Spa, I mean, if you can get to the front 3 rows, you're very lucky because the grid is unbelievably packed.
Yeah.
And of course, officials are there having their day in the sun as well. So it is quite hard to get to the person. And of course, I mean, the run down from La Source Happen down to Eau Rouge, it's not that wide. So when you get 2 cars side by side and the milieu of team members, spectators, sponsors and guests, it's a tough ask.
If you've never been to the total 24 Hours of Spa, you've got to come because it's a mega event and it's relentless track action from Thursday morning onwards. There's the parade of cars into the town on the Wednesday afternoon and then the driver's briefing. And from the moment that we go live on Thursday, the circuit is busy, busy, busy all the way through. Loads of support races with Formula Renault, Lamborghini, the French GT Championship as well. And then, of course, all the total 24 Hours of Spa activity. And it's the best place in the world for beer. And it's a brilliant race and you ought to go if you've never been before. Now, down in the pit lane, Lamborghini team's hard at work. And Ben Goethe has had another spin. It's still him behind the wheel. That was at Village this time, to Abbey rather this time.
Yeah, that's not a good pace to spin. It's a high-speed corner, and I mean, I don't know whether Ben Goethe is just out of his depth, or whether he maybe needs a slightly more sympathetic car setup to give him the confidence. You build confidence if you've got a car which might not be as, say, forgiving or as car user-friendly. Then you never will gain that confidence. You need to go almost back, start and build and then move forward. Then as you get that confidence, you can then put more into the front of the car to give the car more ability to turn a little bit later or more acutely. But right now, the number he's had about 4 off we've seen so far in this session.
And this is what happened to him most recently. That was a big one this time at Abbey.
Yeah, that's not a great place to spin.
No.
Fortunately, didn't spin across the racetrack, stayed on the left-hand side. And God knows what those tires, but I mean, there's been off track, I think that's the 4th time we've seen. And I mean, if it's the original set of tires, they will be like your proverbial threepenny bit. And for those that don't know what a threepenny bit is, Google it.
Yes, it's not Bitcoin, that's for sure. 107, Stephen Kane at the wheel. This is still the quickest car. Ben Goethe has had that spinning Porsche to himself for most of the session, pretty much all the session, but at least he's doing the mileage. There the Bentley boys find themselves on TV. There is 107. If you're wondering why it's 107 and 108 this year, not just 7 and 8, it's because of the Bentley centenary. That's why it's got the 10 prefix. Out of the right hand of Luffield then comes Stephen Kane. Great little character, but only really doing a limited programme. Bentley doing the endurance races, some of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, so he's not spending actually that much time in the car over a season, is he?
No, but I mean, there's a big Bentley programme on a global platform. In America, for example, in their equivalent to what would be Blancpain GT3, they had a win the other weekend at, was it Barber Raceway or something? I'm not sure. Certainly they had a victory. So the car is a very, very competitive car, but in the Blancpain field, whether it's sprint or endurance, or in this case, they're only competing, M-Sport's only competing in the endurance events. You know, it is just so close. I mean, to have a look and see if it's got any closer. It was 21 cars. It's still 21 cars covered by just under a second.
It's insane, isn't it? A flash of the lights at 108 as the Santaloc Audi dives up the inside. That's 26, I think I'm right in saying. Jordan Pepper looking on in the pit bunker at M-Sport, having done the time in 107 early on and feeding back what the car's up to.
Usual driver hand movement. Oh, the back end's doing this, you know, them flicking it. I think every racing driver, that international hand language, that's one of the polite ones.
Yes, we've seen the less polite.
We've seen the less polite ones, yes, we did indeed.
108 going through, Alex Buncombe behind the wheel of it then. Brother Chris in a Ferrari. His dad's here to cheer him on as well, or cheer both of his sons on, Jonathan Buncombe. Himself an excellent touring car racer in the 70s Super Saloons and occasional British Saloon Car Championship outings.
Haven't had a chance to speak to Alex and ask him his views of the Bentley, because obviously coming from the Nissan GTR for many years, familiar with a mid-front engine. So in the case of the Nissan, was more front than it was mid-engine, front-engine GT. And Alex enjoyed great success with Bob Neville and the Nissan team. And as I mentioned earlier, driving himself into this seat in the number 108, did an outstanding job in Monza, and one would anticipate an equally outstanding job here this weekend at Silverstone.
Absolutely right. And again, he goes for these sort of big grunty cars, doesn't he? The Nissan, the Bentley. So comes up through club, rides the curb on the outside of the road, fires it out of the corner, past the wing, down towards Abbey, over the Formula 1 and international event timing line, and then down into Abbey itself. Turn right, through farm on the left, burst of acceleration up towards village, and then heavy braking.
Car rode the curb slightly at the apex, but didn't make any deflection. So the Bentley has always been one of those brands that seems to have the capacity. Look, a big power oversteer coming out of the loop. So there's not a massive amount of grip coming from this set of Pirelli tyres, but nonetheless, you know, interesting to see this lap. The 108 is on. Alex Buncombe, the car, has completed 20. It's on her 21st lap, and its best time was done on lap 6 with, we think, Maxime Soulet behind the wheel. Have you seen Andy Soucek behind the wheel yet or not?
Yes, yeah, Andy Soucek with the motorist.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, 108 comes across start finish line. Look to see whether there's any improvement from 16th place, 2007, and the last lap was 202. So and somebody has got the Parker bit has gone wide, coming through club corner. And in fact, it's 107
with a problem. Stephen Kane.
Yeah.
Getting up to pace again, I think, now. What did he do here? Oh, Stephen.
There we go.
That's an odd place to have that moment.
Don't often see a spin at that part of exit of Vale.
I mean, he spun into club, but does that mean he was wrong at the end of Vale and it sort of ended up there?
Well, he just came out of Vale, put the power on, and the back end just didn't want to respond and just gave up all rear grip. So Stephen Kane, as you point out, don't often see a car rotate at that point. Puts on the hazard lights just to warn people that he's about to come back onto the circuit. Very considerate of Stephen Kane to do that. Now, has he got a problem? Or he's not back up to speed. He's definitely something he's not happy about. So no doubt he's going to come into the pits. Or else he's maybe just looking for track space. But certainly Stephen Kane, having come back onto track after the spin and the exit of Vale into club, didn't look like he was committed to getting on the throttle. So will he regroup and go for it again? Yes, he's going to go for it again.
Yes, yeah, you're
so
right.
Good exit out of Luffield. Just look for a bit of clear rubber, clear track, not clear rubber, clear track, which he seems to have found. So he's got the chance now to go and do a flying lap unimpeded. So sector times, last sector time through sector 1. We have to wait and see what that's going to be. 36 points, 36.3 was the second time.
He's on it this lap, isn't he? But is it going to be a qualifying effort, or is it just going to be a race pace type lap where he's just getting into a rhythm again?
Well, he's committed. Look, whether the car is delivering in a time, but certainly Stephen Kane using all the racetrack he possibly can. He's obviously wary of traffic now ahead of him coming down into Stowe, and is that going to come into play or have a bearing on this lap for the 107 Bentley?
He's nearly a second down on the first sector. So as the team looks on, Stephen Kane comes to the end of Vale. This is where he had his loop last time when he got it wrong, but this time it looks okay and avoids the curb, and the lap's going to be compromised, is it not, because of traffic up the road?
Yeah, it is, and also not running as wide as the 108 was doing in between the two parts of Club Corner, which was what we were saying, particularly Maxime Soulet do, to a lesser degree Alex Buncombe. But now he's going to catch his cars at one of the slower parts of the racetrack, and the Lamborghini, 15 Lamborghini, I thought was going to give room, but just sort of suddenly shut down the options that Stephen Kane had as the sister car going to be pushed back into the garage.
As the Lexus, the Fabien Barthez Bernard Delhay car that runs in the AM Cup, is Fabien Barthez at the wheel of it, the former Manchester United goalkeeper, part of France's World Cup winning team, and no mean racer himself. We've seen him in and out of Blancpain Endurance, in and out of the WEC, but it's good that he's back. And this, despite the fact that it was a winning car with a different team last year, the sole Lexus on the grid. We've lost, sadly for the moment, Emile Frey Racing. Hopefully they'll be back.
Well, we'd love to have them back, but of course, companies have got to decide where they want to pay or spend their money.
Raymond Vos in the gravel.
And that's going to be possibly a stoppage, unless the marshals can get to it and get it. There's an access road, you can just about see just beyond the gravel, there is an access road if they can get the car turned round, but I somehow doubt it. And that's
red flag.
Pops, yeah, red flag. Oh, that's why. A big hit on the right-hand side, so that car will need to be towed away, and bodywork damage, undoubtedly. Certainly the rear wing looked like it took a punch as it went in more or less sideways into that tar bale.
And Cops these days is a very fast corner, isn't it?
They're all quick, really.
True, yeah.
I mean, the slowest corner at Silverstone is probably a quick corner on a lot of racetracks around the world, sadly.
So Raymond Voss's car that Tom Onslow-Cole had done the 6th best time in, that will need to be retrieved. And of course, with this being free practice, so the clock carries on ticking. 107 is being given a driving standards flag for disrespecting track limits. The team's saying, first we've heard of any warning, so we should have a warning to begin with. It's only after 3 warnings we get the flag, but they're saying we haven't had the 3 warnings.
I haven't seen anything that 107 has done. I've seen the sister car, but not the 107, so maybe...
Coming off the curb.
Well, you can hear him. He said he's just explaining to the... Yeah, the sort of... This is he's talking about coming out of Vale. So he must run the curb coming through Vale, and as the car came down, bottomed out, and that caused the car to go into the spin. Again, an unusual situation, Stephen Kane.
Yeah.
Well, there's Raymond Voss. He's okay, surveying the damage. The very tall Dutch driver, quick out of the car. So the clock carries on ticking. This eats into the 90 minutes, just as it did when we had Philippe Steveny off the road early on in the session. The camouflage Mercedes.
Of course, they've also got to get the tyre bale and the binding, as Stephen Kane's saying in here.
The gear was really high. Yeah. It's a 10 over the target, because everything was brilliant. And I backed off for a lap, and then the brakes went. It wasn't braking as well, and then the rear started to go a little bit. But come back, once you start to run, it starts to get back. It's like it bleeds the heat across the tyre. Yeah. What? But it's not too high precious. We need to lower them and see where it goes. We did already now. Like really lower them now. Go like 1.5. Well, let's give it a test. Yeah. Let's do it within this session.
Interesting to eavesdrop.
No. Don't lower the pressures. Speak to Pirelli, because they're the people that control the tyre. And I know that what they're trying to do, they're trying to make the tyre work and get the surface of the tyre to be constantly flat. If you put higher pressures in or the pressures are going up, you can get an element of crowning in the tyre. But I mean, I don't know whether Pirelli are going to come along and say, yeah, 2 thumbs up, you do that, mate, that's fine. It doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah. Interesting though, hearing what Stephen was saying about sort of backing off for a lap and then it comes back to you and just...
Inconsistent. I mean, it's sort of... Yeah. And I think that's a lot of what everybody has been experiencing, certainly over Thursday and Friday. And I would think certainly the first maybe hour, we're just over the hour now, which is 26 minutes remaining. There's been a number of people running off track, and not running off track at lap times you would assume they would run off track with.
Well, that's the reason for this red flag, our second of free practice here at Silverstone, round 2 of the Blancpain GT Series Endurance Cup. It is Raymond Voss's Mercedes that's had a big spin and ended up in the tyre barrier on the outside of the road. So the red flag is out. Everybody heads for the pit lane, and then the recovery vehicle can be dispatched to try and move that. And then when the car is out of harm's way, and actually you can probably just pull it across the road to pit out and be good, but then you've got to make sure that the tyre barrier doesn't need any extra work as well. So we'll be good to go in a few minutes' time.
But we're not getting any indication yet from race control as to how long we might expect, or when the track will then once again go green. So they want to get the car removed to safety, whether they bring it, enable it. I don't even know if the car would be able to make its own way back. Certainly there'll be a load of gravel in the under tray of the car, so that may decide just to let the car remain somewhere. Safety behind one of these one of these access points that are all around the circuit.
Diego Menchaca, who was upside down in the gravel at Browns a week ago, that car for the Orange One FFF racing team heading to its pit apron. So Bentley 107 topping the times by 49 1/1000ths of a second. Currently 25 minutes of the session to go. The clock carries on ticking, but the session under this red flag for the moment. And there you see the fleet of Lamborghinis that Andrea Caldarelli's squad operates. 563 in the background is the Caldarelli, Dennis Lind, Marco Mappelli car. There's only 17th fastest. I know it's not qualifying, but you might have anticipated it to be a bit higher up than that, surely.
I would have expected it, but of course, I think that if this had been a race weekend where there hadn't been these, what Blancpain has done now is to try and cut down on teams going to circuits prior to events and testing, and of course the budgets that are involved. So there are now official test sessions which are organized, and the first of them has been here at Silverstone for 2 days. So it's a different structure, but had there not been that 2-day test, it would have been interesting to see how quickly teams would have adapted to the conditions. I suspect probably there wouldn't have been a huge amount of difference, because quite often what testing gives you is lots of track time, but it doesn't always translate into suddenly a leap forward in terms of overall performance.
True. How are the Rover Porsches doing? Because we saw them early on. Matt Campbell is 11th, Dumas 15th.
Yeah, I mean, they were in and around 8th, 9th and 10th, the 99 car for quite some time. They're now just outside the top 10. I don't think they're particularly fussed or worried. They're just going through, as everybody is more or less, cycling drivers through and running whatever they have that's got rubber on it, rather than throwing a set of tires and going out and all of a sudden, wow, aren't we, or haven't we resolved all our problems? Tires can mask a myriad of issues on a race car, but they'll only be there in that window, that peak window, for a short time.
And it's so critical to get the rotation right. But then like 4, 5, you can't load the rear enough, it won't let you. And then you struggle out of 5 with the understeer. And then the understeer at 7. And then it still has the same rear nervousness at 16 in the mid corner.
Matt Campbell there offering advice.
Understeer is in the medium high speed.
Yeah.
Right. This is what we had yesterday.
It's not low speed. I mean, low speed rotation isn't very good, like at 17, but most of the problem is at medium to high speed corners.
Here's the main problem at the moment for you. And is loading the rear, was this better now after the change?
No. I mean, slightly, but I think it's maybe better because the front and the rear were going off at the same time. So it was becoming more neutral.
So Dirk Werner and Matt Campbell discussing live Raymond Voss's car out of the gravel. Now, Mathieu Vazivière is 5th fastest for the SRO Motorsports squad. Mathieu out of the car is with Dakota.
Fresh out of the car, Matt. Now tell me, what are the track conditions like today?
It's better than yesterday. It's a bit sunny and everything, so no, all good for the moment. We are working really hard on the car to get everything perfect for tomorrow. So yeah, we are quite really busy.
Now it's sunny here in the pit lane, but it's very cold, as we both know. Is this going to be a struggle for the tyre pressures?
Not too much. I mean, it's not the main thing that we struggle with for the moment, so let's see how it will be. But no, for the tyre pressure, no yet, not a problem yet.
Any other concerns?
No, not yet. We'll see tomorrow in quali.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to go back to what was the discussion with Porsche and not being able to rotate the car. What I think, if you decode it all, it's about haven't got enough rear end grip to make that commitment to be able to get on the throttle and, well, principally get into the corner on your ideal line, then open the throttle and get out of the corner. So I would imagine that comment is probably a pretty familiar comment up and down the pit lane.
So Raymond Voss is okay. He trudges back. The car, his Mercedes, is, as I was predicting, being hoiked across the road. How's WRT getting on with the fleet of Audis? Not stellar at the moment. The best Audi is a Santalot car. Vincent Voss is here this weekend. You've also got there the Lexus. So Fabien Barthez brought the car in. That's a long way down, 46, that AM Cup car. And the teams will have probably about 16, 17 minutes when we go back green.
Yeah, so the Mercedes has been craned away. It'll be removed. It's been to the, there's an exit into the paddock where the car is now, and that's sort of about where the white line, the exit line of the pit lane exit is. So that car can be returned to its garage, and it'll not be back on track in this session, that's for sure. Just wonder if there's any repair work needed on the barrier on the outside of Copse. So we're still 20 minutes of the session remaining, and still under red flag conditions.
Can we assess yet how bad the damage is on that Mercedes?
I think it's superficial.
Yeah.
But of course, it was pretty much side on when it hit the tower wall. So you need to check all the suspension components. There may be some residual body damage. Well, the racetrack itself is fine because the track is now gone green. We've got just under 20 minutes of the session to go.
So we're back up and running then, and Alain Adon, the race director, does what he refers to as start on short notice. So as soon as he can, right, we're off, out you go again, on your toes, and he wants to give them as much track time as possible, so everyone goes pouring out once more. But are we going to see a dummy qualifying session now, or are they still going to work through their programs? What's your reading on this?
I would not be surprised if somebody just does put on a fresh set of tyres, in other words, a new set of tyres, to find out, because there's been nothing conclusive that we've seen so far in this 1 hour or so of running that we've been watching. So is it something to do with the tyre? Is it something to do with everybody's car? I mean, we're slower than we would have been, I think, at this point last year. Is it track temperature? Is it whatever? So the way you can partly answer that is to, within the limited amount of tyre allocation you have, take a punt and send somebody out to find out. But it's a sort of everybody then will know what you have done, and they'll also benefit from that information, and it will save them doing the very same thing that you would have done.
Stracker there with 43, ready to send the car back out again, which is the one that Jack Hawksworth brought in. It's been in the pit lane for quite a long time, actually, well over 10 minutes now. And Jules Gounon has taken over 107. So interesting, isn't it? Stephen Kane spoke to the team, came up with some ideas, but they're going to let Jules Gounon be the guinea pig. He'll go pioneer it. Yeah,
well, Jules had not yet completed a run, as far as you remember. So he needs to be in just, what, 18 minutes or so to get a feel. And he would have been in the car Thursday and Friday. But you need to be in the car on the day when you're all here running. And it is now, this is the event formal. What was going on Thursday, Friday was a test. And it's what's being done now forward into qualifying tomorrow morning that really is going to determine ultimately who will end up with a front row grid start position.
66 Audi, we touched on that earlier when Clement Schmidt was driving it. He's got the car up to 22nd. That's one of the Attento Audi R8 LMS GT3 2019s, in other words, the latest car. And also from the Audi squad, inevitably WRT, Vincent Voss last week skipped Brands Hatch because he was busy with the new DTM programme, which went pretty well for them. But it's good to have him back here this weekend, overseeing everything. And also from the WRT fleet, number 17, we didn't race at Monza because of early damage, so that car is in dire need of a good result. Shea Davis, the Australian, is behind the wheel at the moment.
You asked me at Brands Hatch, did I think that Vincent Voss not being present at Brands, which normally he is present at all the Blancpain rounds, would that have a bearing on the outcome of the team's performance? And I felt fundamentally no, but it will be interesting to see now that Vincent Voss is here, will his presence actually have a bearing on the overall performance, bearing in mind that the number 2, Dries van Thor, Perez Compact and Alex Riberos, which you'd have to think is maybe their strongest driver lineup in the WRT team. Santalot themselves have got very strong lineups indeed, as has Phoenix. So it's not just now WRT that may be the dominant Audi team amongst the field.
No, you're right. I mean, Santalot, when it won at Spa a few years ago, rather proved that point, didn't it? And it's remained a front-running team. There is Shea Davis, the Australian. Interesting that we've got more and more Australians not only coming into GT racing, but also coming to Europe. Nick Foster is on this crew as well, the Australian driver. And Shea Davis blasts wide out of Aintree onto Wellington Straight. We've got 16 minutes to go. Romain Dumas and Gerhard Tveraza have been reported to the stewards for speeding after the red flag. That's being looked at, so there might be a few more rumblings in the stewards' room, irrespective of lunch.
Yes, it's interesting that young Australian talent is used to come across to Europe to look for single-seater opportunities. Those are very few and very far between, unless your dad is mega rich.
Yeah.
But GT racing, in particular, these Blancpain championships, are very much more accessible. And I mean, I want to blow our own trumpet, but I think it's outstanding motor racing.
Can't argue with that. 15 minutes of this session to go as you look at 107 Jules Gounon now. First time he's been in the car today, thrown in at the end of this session with a few tweaks being made in that stoppage. And Gounon is about to come through then onto a proper flying lap.
And he's being pursued by the Audi. So what will Gunon do? His first flying lap is a 2:14. So that is just his out lap, or his first flying lap of no consequence.
So Gunon in the Bentley. Nick Homerson has taken over the second fastest car that Andrea Bertolini did the time in. Homerson won't be as quick as Bertolini, so don't expect that to take the top time. Sala Joric still handling 97, so he's done a lot of the mileage in this session there, getting the Turkish driver up to speed. The road seems to become incredibly busy all of a sudden.
Yeah, you're going to get groups of cars, or cars grouping around the racetrack. Jules Gounon not very happy that being stuck behind the Lamborghini coming down into Stowe, wants to maintain the momentum he's been building up to. This is probably his first full-on flying lap. So he would have felt there's been a little bit of compromise as he came down Hanger Straight into Stowe, had to make some adjustments. And he himself now again getting the pressure from the Audi directly behind, getting the hurry up, Jules.
Well, they've got past the Adrian Amstutz Lamborghini, the Am Cup Barwell car in the background. Jules Gounon finds the curb on the inside of Abbey, goes now through Farm, and this is the run towards the village. He's now the lights for the traffic ahead to say, come on, quick, get out of the way, but he's a second down on the absolute best in the first sector. As we've had a change in the times, Steins Grothorst has gone 5th, and Jack Hawksworth has gone 6th for Straka.
Yeah, just those two times literally popped up in the last 10 seconds, so certainly the 55 Audi of Shorthorst is the one that I was looking at the screen, green in the first and second sector, and not surprisingly he's now with 3.5 tenths of a second of still the fastest lap, which was set by Jordan Pepper on the second lap, what, some hour and almost 10 minutes ago.
So here is Gounon then. This is the fastest car, the time done right at the early part of the session by Jordan Pepper. And Jules Gounon's flying lap time is a 2 minutes 3.476, so it's a sedate one in comparison with the real gun lap at the start of the session.
Yeah, of no consequence in overall lap times. Just give him time behind the car. There's the 55 Audi that has made significant progress, and that time 2 minutes, 0.0360. So very good run for Scott Shiner of Shorthorst.
The track has just been declared wet. Does that mean there's a sprinkling of rain somewhere? Probably in Buckinghamshire. Was it none in Northamptonshire?
Well, it could well be. We do get regional or localized rainstorms here at Silverstone, so you can be down at Stowe or down at Club, and you can have your wipers flat out, then you get back up here to Woodpin, you get your sunglasses to get. So it is a very weather fickle Grand Prix circuit.
Well, here is Steins Grothorst, 5th fastest then, and behind him Jack Hawksworth has done another personal best on his subsequent lap. I think Grothorst is about to bail, is he? Yes, he's going for the pit lane. There's behind Mikhail Alyoshin now, the Russian driver for SMP Racing. Also for the pit lane goes number 90 Mercedes. So 12 minutes to go.
So when the track is declared wet, it basically means that you have the option of running on a wet weather set of tyres or staying on your slicks. It's your call. Cars, of course, have to mandatorily have their headlights on. But I'm not seeing rain any parts of the racetrack that we're able to see. The track temperature is 14.8, ambient 14.5, humidity 47, so it's quite low humidity, so where's the rain?
It's a good question, but we've had that instruction, lights on. Nicky Team up to 24th now, and it's a long, long way down, but it's an improvement, a 2 minute 0.950. Nicky Team 24th, the
well, actually, we've now got 24 cars covered by just under a second. It was half an hour ago 21 cars. So everybody, or not those outside the 21 originally, have now 3 more have joined and see the Aston Martin. And that's done. Is that done?
That's a Vale, I think, isn't it? Chris Harris at the wheel. It's at the end of Vale.
I need to stand up to see clearly. There's a lot of backlight on the screen.
63 Lamborghini arriving a bit wayward. Chris Harris should get away here, but he's not yet in top gear. Trying to keep out of everybody's way. Back onto the circuit, and he will head for the pit lane, I suspect.
Yeah, and he's going in relative terms slowly back, so it comes through the second part of watch your mirrors, Chris.
Right, there's Nicky Team I was talking about. So the SRO Motorsports Aston accelerates out of Aintree, having to get used to a different engine note this year.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed in Monza, the Astons, in terms of using or riding the curbs, looked to me to be very stiffly sprung. They didn't seem to have the same compliance over some of the curbs. Now the curbing here at Silverstone is a different sort of curbing to Monza. Motorcycles don't race at Monza, but there's just been announced an extension of the MotoGP contract at Silverstone, so the curbing here on lots of the corners is going to be user-friendly for MotoGP competitors, and therefore drivers tend to ride them very much more. It doesn't reflect so much on the Aston as it might have done at Monza.
On board now with Klaus Bachler. So number 54 Porsche on board. And this car is to be found 30th fastest. It's a long way down.
That's away, but I mean, it's not relevant in terms. So up to fourth gear, into fifth, into Abbey. Listen. Ooh, got out of it big time, didn't he?
But you need big whatnots around Silverstone. It's still a proper driver's circuit, isn't it?
Well, corners like Abbey, there's a bump in the corner, or there was a bump in the corner. And if you hit that bump incorrectly, or the car is slightly out of balance, it can give you a handful of opposite lock one way and the other. I think what we need is to turn the external temperature up about 5-8 Celsius to just give that, let the tarmac start to come alive.
Yeah.
I don't feel that the circuit is giving up yet what it traditionally will give up. I mean, on a high-speed circuit, you're going to generate tire temperature. That's not normally a problem. But if the ambient and the track temperature is cold, it's going to take time for that condition to develop.
So Bachler back in. In fact, quite a few drivers now coming into the pit lane. There you've got the Silver Cut Barwell Lamborghini going through, 78, which was James Paul, now Jordan DeWitt. 519, which is Giovanni Venturini, 20th fastest. The Lamborghini going through behind. The Rover Porsche, one of the two Rover Porsches, swinging its way through Beckett's. Now there, Jordan DeWitt, the Northwestern driver for Barwell. Giovanni Venturini, experienced Lamborghini hustler, 20th quickest, comes now through Chapel Curve onto Hanger Straight. Speed building all the time now, down towards Stowe. So 7 more minutes of the session remain. 1 or 2 teams still cycling through, drivers. Maybe thinking about one Banzai effort at the very end. We'll wait and see. But Giovanni Venturini comes out of Stowe, down through Vale. The FFF Racing team all looking on in the pit bunkers.
One might suspect that the 55 Audi Scott Shorthorse may have put on a fresh I wouldn't say a new set of tyres, just to suddenly make that elevation up into the top. Well, he's 5th of the top 5.
We've got another red flag. We have.
I have indeed. Now,
6 minutes to go. Suddenly saw the graphic go red and did a double take.
And I doubt it'll be restarted after this, because normally with 6 minutes remaining, well, the clock's going to count down anyway.
But why do we have a red? What's gone on this time?
Well, the camera so far hasn't picked it up.
Everybody on a go slow back to the pit lane. It'll take a good couple of minutes to round everybody up and bring them into the pit lane. So you might be right, this could be the end of the session.
I would say, because until everybody's back in the pit lane, we don't know where around the racetrack, or the reason why the red flag's been, or the circuit has gone red. So we're being kept away from that information.
So the session is stopped with just over 6 minutes to go, but the clock carries on ticking. And the most likely thing now is that they will head to the pit lane, and they might, if they're lucky, get a minute of flying lap at the very end. But it could be that the session ends with the cars in the pit lane an insufficient time for it to be relevant to release them again. We'll wait and see. So the incident not immediately apparent. We've seen quite a few corners out on the circuit. It might be for something innocuous like a bit of bodywork in the road, of course, rather than a car off the track. Race Control have the feed that we're all looking at, plus also CCTV cameras around the circuit, Silverstone CCTV, so providing extra information. And of course the observers on each marshal's post can report back if there's something that they are not happy with as well. Pit lane, of course, gets busy. In comes the Gulf Porsche.
It wouldn't be one of the ubiquitous Silverstone hairs, would it?
Could be. Could be.
Silverstone, always you have a hair somewhere on the racetrack at some point. It used to be on Hanger Straight. They'd stop in the middle of the racetrack, ears pointing.
It always used to make an appearance during the Grand Prix weekend, but maybe the hair has become a GT fan. I hope it made it to the other side of the road. That's the only thing. Because there are far more GT3 cars than Formula 1 cars. Anyway, pit lane is filling up, but it's going to be unlikely. Oh, 76 has stopped at turn 6 and rejoined. That much we do know. Now, 76 was Nicky Team, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was Nicky Team the last time in the car, certainly, yeah.
So if he's had a moment...
There's that 70, that's the 62 in there, sister car. So still no indication.
Well, I'm just wondering whether 76 stopped, the red flag came out, and then the car fired up and got going again. Could be one of those things.
I'm assuming that was on the exit of the Beckett's complex.
Yeah, turn 6 is
high speed. It's the high speed.
Yeah.
That's where we saw earlier the Butson Junior BMW off. So the car has gone off there. Red flag is displayed, or the circuit goes red.
And the session will restart in short notice. So, in other words, any moment, as soon as we can, we'll get you out there, chaps, for another couple of laps.
Well, it's going to take 2 minutes minimum. And that's a flying lap, so it's going to take probably 2:12 to leave from the pit lane, and depending how far down the pit lane you are or how near to the exit of the pit lane, so you get one out lap, and maybe if you're lucky, if you're not delayed because you're early in the pit lane, you might get one flying lap.
Is it worth going out?
Teams will always have a reason, if there's time available, to send a car out, but frankly, I don't see, well, there we see the 62, Aston Martin, is heading down towards pit lane exit, so they feel there's plenty more they can do. There's the 76, the car that did spin down at the exit of the Beckett. We don't like to call it the complex, but in effect it's a series of 3 corners. So a lot of people preparing, they're all rolling down the pit lane to get that one last run. 2 minutes. So track is still red, so as the clock continues to tick down. If this doesn't go green within 45 seconds, all you're going to do is go out and come straight back in.
Yeah. So everybody's queuing up. Bentley adds to the queue. Session will restart in a short notice, says Alain Nadon, the race director. 2.5 minutes.
Well, they're still going out onto the track because the track is still red, according to our timing and scoring, but the cars are out on the racetrack.
Now, a light green at the end of the pit lane, potentially, but we haven't gone green on the timing screen.
No.
I'm perplexed here.
Well, everybody's going at the speed they ought to do when the track is still a red track, which is 50 kilometers per hour, and that's what we're watching now. So why were they all released if the track is still red?
Well, if there was a red light at the end of the pit lane, you would stay. If somebody had flicked it in error to green, then one car will go out and everybody will follow.
But everybody's gone out.
Well, exactly. And the timing screen is still saying red flag, and nobody's going quickly because they're all correct as to what's going on. So this is a very odd situation.
They're all petrified if they exceed the 50 kilometers per hour, they'll be penalised.
Well, the teams are asking, is it still a red flag?
It's red flag on our timing and scoring, and it's red flag, our red track conditions on our screen in the commentary booth, and everybody on the racetrack believes it's a red flag. We've got 1 minute and 24, 5, 6 seconds remaining. For some of these cars, they'll barely get back into the pit lane before this time is concluded. Interesting, unusual. I mean, we need to investigate more thoroughly.
All the teams are asking, are we still on a red flag? Is the session green or not? Still a red flag. Are we green? Is it still a red? So the teams are equally perplexed.
I'm sure they are.
But I mean, the fact that all the graphics are still showing red, the timing screen is still showing red, I can't then understand how cars have got out.
Well, you don't get out onto the racetrack unless there's a green light at the pit lane exit, which obviously there must have been by...
Yeah. That makes it sound like a human error, flicking the switch to the wrong place.
A human error?
Well,
in a sport that's controlled by technology.
But there's somebody, isn't there, controlling that traffic light with a switch. Everywhere else around the racetrack, there is a red flag, and the session will not be resumed. And yet the cars have gone out under a red flag. I have not seen this before. This is weird.
This is interesting. Now, is there a purpose behind this that we're not advised of? Or Or not.
Well,
I think we better stop before we dig ourselves even deeper.
sage advice, John. How strange. Well, the session is not being resumed even though the cars are on the track. So we're now at the end of the session. We've hit 0 anyway after one of the most bizarre laps we've ever had.
Now, will everybody come in at the end of this lap because they won't have taken the checkered flag? Or will they continue to do another lap at 50 kilometers per hour?
Don't encourage that. We'll be here till Christmas. They are all coming in, I think.
It looks to me like they're all coming in as well. I think that's very wise. So the track, I mean, just from a commentary booth, I can see across to the entrance into Luffield. And it is evidently clear that the red lights are flashing. So how these cars all managed to get out onto the racetrack. I mean, if one or two had gotten out and then the light had been changed back to red, well, that was human error. But everybody went out.
Well, once one person goes, you go with it, don't you?
It seems, it's almost as if there was a purpose behind this, and we're sort of making light of it, making a bit of a joke of it. I wonder, was there something that the teams have been advised that they should do? I don't know what it would be.
I take your point, but the teams were also asking of the officials.
Yeah, well, that's sort of,
is this red or green?
That contradicts the point I'm trying to make.
Plot thickens. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise you, for pre-qualifying. I suspect there are some animated conversations going on at the moment. What's also interesting is that, yes, they all went out, but then, of course, with the red lights still on around the circuit, nobody ever speeded up, so you had that slow bicycle race.
I wonder what would have happened had somebody speeded up, having been advised that the track was green in the first place. Or maybe there was no light whatsoever at the end of the pit lane. I don't know. Just, you know.
Very odd.
It is odd. It's something not that I've ever seen before. I'm sure there's a logical reason behind it, but somehow that logic has yet to explain itself.
Well, alas, with a queue of cars descending to the end of the pit lane, the marshal thought maybe it's time to go and turn the traffic lights to green.
Yeah, the instruction has to come from race control, race director.
Well, something went awry, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But for now, the free practice session is at an end, and 1:07 Bentley tops the times then with a 2-minute 0.009. That time set by Jordan Pepper from earlier on. And second fastest then is the time from Andrea Bertolini. Third, the best time of the 97 Aston was done by Sally Jolic. Then you had Davide Rigon fourth, Stein Scotthorst going fifth, and Jack Hawksworth hauling that Strackett Mercedes up to a very creditable sixth fastest time. Seventh going the way of Matt Parry. Eighth, Tom Onslow Cole before Raymond Vos went off the road, sadly. Ninth, never quite sparkling, but there's more to come. The Engel, Stoltz, Berman, Mercedes, and Mirko Bortolossi, Christian Engelhardt, Rolf Ineichen rounding out the top 10. In the classes, the best Pro-Am, Louis Mackiels, the car that he shares with Andrea Bertolini, Nick Thomason. The best of the Silver Cup cars is the 55 Attempto Audi, and heading the AMS, you have to go all the way down to 36th and find the Amstutz Machitsky Farwell Lamborghini that is crewed also by Miguel Ramos. So an interesting session with a lot going on and a few spins and a little bit of damage and a few drivers falling foul of officialdom, and so the teams will have the afternoon now to work on the cars before we get to the pre-qualifying session that comes up towards the end of the afternoon. Qualifying itself is tomorrow here at Silverstone, and it'll be interesting to see whether the order is much jumbled when we get through the pre-qualifying period a little bit later on in the day. Let's have a quick look then at the highlights of the session that began with Mercedes going rally crossing, coming through the Beckett's S's, bouncing back towards the circuit. The Ferraris were busy battling amongst themselves, turning up through Brooklands. Stephen Kane having his spin coming to the end of Vale. We had Raymond Vos off the road quite spectacularly into the tar barrier at Copse Corner. That was the end of that car from the session. The red flags flew in the end 3 times, and although cars ventured out right at the very end, it was this 1:07 Bentley in the hands of Jordan Pepper that did the top time in this free practice session. More to come later in the day. For now, from the pair of us, is bye-bye.